This week, we are going to review what you know about Entity Framework Code first, and we are going to expand what you know about Fluent API. We will also be reviewing the link queries that we first covered in 195 and that you have been working with in the controllers. Also, you will be learning a little bit more about relationships and how to handle many-to-many by creating a bridge table that will be covered. And lastly, you will learn how to create an MVC project if you have a database already. So that involves using database first. So you're going to go through the lecture demo. And so I kind of review the whole entity framework code first process. Okay, because we have been working quite a bit with it, but it is nice to have a review. Then we do talk about migrations, and primarily we've been doing add and update, but you can see that there are other migration commands as well. Then we get into different types of relationships, and we review the conventions that Entity Framework uses. And these are basically assumptions that it makes regarding what the primary key is, what a foreign key is, and that type of thing. And then we also review the navigation properties because those become very important. They really should be in place before you do any kind of scaffolding. So I actually go through the different types of relationships just to make sure that you understand, how the foreign key goes in, which table it goes in, where the navigation property for the many goes. And I also include some graphics because I think that is helpful in furthering your understanding. So we go through all of these different types of relationships and basically how the code is then generated into the tables, how those tables should look if you go into the SQL Server Object Explorer part of Visual Studio. Okay, and then I've actually got some classes and I've got a little diagram showing how they relate. And you can see we have a little issue between department and location because that is a many-to-many. Okay, and so as you go through here, you're going to walk through this example. And again, we're going to review some attributes that deal with relationships. And then we get into Fluent API. And really, you're only going to use Fluent API if you need to modify some of the defaults that are in Entity Framework. So if you don't like what it's going to do by default, you can, change it with Fluent API. Okay, so lots of examples, code and diagrams for you guys to look at. Hands-on 2 gets into resolving many-to-many relationships. And then we get into creating and configuring our database files. So this is where we're actually going to add Entity Framework. We're going to create our context file. Then we've got to configure app settings, add the dependency injection into the program CS file, and all of that fun stuff before we can actually perform migrations. And then after we perform the migrations, we will verify that the tables were created correctly and then do the scaffolding. So that is our process. And then we get to database first, which is kind of like the reverse because you start with a working database and you kind of go backwards. So I think you guys will find this interesting. So here we basically describe what the process is, and then you guys are actually going to get to practice it. Okay, and so as you work through this, you will end up with two different web apps that you're going to end up turning in. Um, do pay attention to link to entity queries. These are the queries that we have been using in our controllers, and the link queries are the same that we use back in the 195 class. In fact, for those of you who maybe didn't have me or have forgotten, I've got the review here. So you can go back through that material and take a look. I also included some cheat sheets that just kind of help you remember how to create those queries. And then we get into how MVC handles concurrency. And concurrency is the issue of multiple people trying to access the same data at the same time. Okay, and so we talk about what the defaults are in an MVC project regarding concurrency. Okay, and then we get into a little summary of what to turn in and basically how I am going to grade each of these assignments. And then once you're done, you will push those up to GitHub and submit the links. I do have a link to the end of semester capstone project and showcase requirements here that you can take a look at. And I've got a lot of resources regarding the link queries. If you guys run into problems or if you have questions, please let me know and have an awesome week.